Hey guys, Tom Barclay here, back with another video. It's been a while, I know, just been relentless recently, but I'm looking to do more of these, get back into it, hopefully boost the algorithm a bit. I know that it's going to be punishing me for my lack of stuff recently. But I want to do a video on Antoine Semenyo, the Bournemouth winger who Tottenham very much had a good look at over the summer. Didn't sign him, he signed a new contract, but the news today is that there is a release clause in that contract. I'm not sure exactly the details, how much, when exactly it works in terms of the terms, but I am told that there is a release clause which should give Tottenham and any other potential suitors a nice little boost about their prospects of maybe signing him one day. And I want to do a bit of a video on why I think Spurs should look towards Antoine Semenyo, maybe in the January window, maybe later on. But yeah, Semenyo, he's someone, as I say, Spurs and Man United very much looked at him in the summer. He ended up signing that new contract at Bournemouth, which came as a little bit of a surprise. I actually interviewed his colleague, Alex Scott, who I know is very close to Semenyo, a few weeks ago, Tottenham supporting Alex Scott, by the way, who has a little coffee club with Semenyo and a couple of other players down at Bournemouth. And in fact, Semenyo actually turned up halfway through the interview. He seemed a really nice bloke. But in that interview, Scott talked about how every day, whilst he was at the under-21s Euros with Archie Gray, he was in contact with Semenyo constantly, trying to find out what the latest, trying to convince him to stay. So very much it was up in the air whether he would or not. And then obviously he ultimately signed that new contract, which I think came as a bit of a surprise to most people in football. But with that release clause in there, I don't think it will be too long before he does potentially get a move to with respect, bigger club than Bournemouth, as well as they're doing at the moment. Whether the Spurs are that club, we'll wait to see. But Semenyo, he's moved on from, whether there was any frustration over a new not getting a move in the summer. If anything, I don't think there was, because he signed this new deal. He started the season absolutely on fire. I think only Erling Haaland really has started the season better than Semenyo. 7 Premier League games, 6 goals already, 3 assists. I think that's second only to Haaland for sort of goal contributions. And he's just been brilliant. And he seems like he's adapted a bit from the player of last season, where he was really, really dangerous and scored a lot of goals. I think 11 goals in the Premier League. There's a reason why he was on the radar of Spurs and other clubs, but perhaps he was a little bit inconsistent at times. He seems to, in this relatively small sample size we've had so far this season, he's become a bit more savvy over his shots. He's not having quite as many, but he's doing more with each shot that he takes. He's getting nearer the goal, it seems, rather than sort of pot shots from distance. And I just think he would really suit Tottenham's style of play under Thomas Frank on that left flank, where it's a problem. It's not a problem position, but it's a position where if they had a really top-class left winger, which I think Semenyo has the potential to be, it could really transform this team from where it's at now to another level. And Semenyo, he obviously has the athleticism, the power, the skill, the pace to be an excellent left winger and someone who really could improve Tottenham's attack. But I think he's also adding a sort of ruthlessness to his shooting this season, which, again, small sample size, but if he can continue it, I can't imagine anyone will expect him to sustain the level he's at, basically a goal a game. But if he can sustain it and get towards that 20 goal mark, I mean, he really will be in demand from all over the world. So it's no guarantee that Spurs would even get him at this stage. But for around sort of 75 million, which seems at least that from Bournemouth's point of view, I don't know exactly what the release clause figure is, but that would be likely to be around that figure, I think. I think that would be value for money. I mean, the Lewis family have obviously, as of last week, injected 100 million into the club, which we half expected. They were, I'm not sure I did a video, but I definitely did a piece a few weeks ago how they were still looking for that investment, and it was very likely it would come from them, from ENIC, from the Lewis family. This extra investment, 100 million has gone into the club. It's apparently basically at the disposal of the managerial team. So it's not just Thomas Frank, Johan Lang, and then obviously Vinay Venkatesham. So it's up to them what they do with it. But I think spending 75 million on Semenyo, ideally in January or at some point in the future, would go a long way to using it in a savvy way. I mean, On the left at the moment, obviously Wilson Odegaard is getting an opportunity at the moment. He's still very raw. I think there's still question marks whether he really will cut it at the top of the Premier League. Brennan Johnson's finding his feet at the moment under Thomas Frank, with the right side basically locked down by Mohamed Kudus, who's obviously a Ghanaian teammate of Semenyo. His limited opportunities are coming more on the left. I don't think he really convinces out on the left, to be honest, cutting in. Matthias Tell's mainly been playing more up front, and he obviously had a brilliant game for him personally, scoring that goal at Leeds, which should give him a huge boost of confidence. And it is interesting, given how the reputation that Frank has of being a master developer of young talent, or players generally, how much those guys who are being written off to a certain extent, Tell, Odegaard, how much they may develop over the coming year if they can stay fit under Frank. So who's to say they can't be the solution long term? But even so, with the modern game, it's obviously a squad game. And I think Semenyo would just add a real bit of quality. He's someone that played with Solanke when Solanke was obviously at Bournemouth, scored 19 goals that season, Solanke, before he got his move to Tottenham. So they already have that dynamic there. He's kind of taken the mantle from Solanke last season, didn't obviously score as many goals. He is a wide player. But he's really honed his craft for a player who's really earned his dues, really. I mean, he's someone who came through the lower leagues, was obviously with Bristol City, but had various loan spells, non-league with Bath City, League Two with Newport County, League One with Sunderland as well. Really worked his way up to the point where he is, as I said before, the most informed player in the Premier League, along with Erling Haaland, you'd have to say. And given his profile at just 25, the way he's been improving season on season, I really think he would fit the mould of the kind of player that Tottenham have generally identified over the years anyway, but particularly with the way that Frank likes to work. I think he would fit in really nicely. Like I say, already got that relationship with Solanke, got that relationship with Kudus playing for Ghana, and the way the team is set up, having that ability to run in behind and have that composure and be a real problem on the left-hand side would suit this style of play a lot. So let's see what happens. But the fact that he's got a release clause, hopefully from Tottenham's perspective, has got them thinking there's an opportunity there. But we'll see what happens. Just on Tell and Odegaard, they've had another really good week for the France under-21s. It seems to be something quite regularly with them. Odegaard scored twice, Tell scored once in the 6-1 batting of Estonia. I'm not quite sure what Estonia's under-21s standard is like, but it's good to see them delivering again at that level. And let's see what Frank can do with those two players as we go further into the season. That Leeds game, I do really think, for Tell's perspective in particular, was a big boost. And when those guys can sort of come to the party in the same way that Bergvall and Gray did last season as youngsters, it really just sort of deepens the bench, deepens the squad that's at Spurs' disposal, at Thomas Frank's disposal. But that doesn't mean there's not space for some real star quality. And ever since Son left, yes, he may have not had the best final season. Probably his time is up physically in the Premier League, albeit he's started life in the MLS like a house on fire. Been absolutely brilliant. I think he's got similar statistics to Semenyo, if even better over there. They have been in need, I would say, of a proper replacement out wide left. So let's see what happens. Albeit we're sort of discounting the effect that Kulusevski coming into the mix when he's fit. I'm wondering where he fits in, because Kudus seems to have got that right side locked down. But a player who's really, really used to playing wide left rather than someone out of position, which I do think Kudus would be. I do think Kulusevski would be. No doubt Johnson is on the left when he plays there. Would really elevate this team. So let's see what happens. And someone like Maddison, when he's back fit, I think would really relish playing with someone like Semenyo. Maddison, if you haven't seen already, did a fantastic, really insightful video, which I'll check out on YouTube, of his first 3 weeks of recovery from the ACL, or start of his long recovery from the ACL. I thought it was really, really illuminating over what it must be like, the emotions you go through, what his teammates have been like supporting him, particularly Romero, Vicario, Spence. Was quite enlightening, if you haven't seen already, to the dynamics within the squad. For him, within, I guess the only sort of bit of news from it was when he was having this conversation with the doctors about recovery, and how technically you can be back in 6 months from an ACL. as the quickest you can do it generally. And it sounds like everything's been going really well based on the clips with the surgeon, and there's no real worries there. But he made the point, Maddison, that at this stage of his career, when he's going to come back and he's going to be 29 into his last year of his contract really at Spurs, he can't, having already suffered this injury with the medial one before he got the ACL, he can't afford to rush it. And I think we're more talking about eight months at the least, based on his reaction in that video. So we're talking more like April at the earliest, and then who knows when he's actually back to peak form. Because when you think of when he had his ankle ligaments in that Chelsea mad 4-1 game, it took him best part of a year really, or not far off, to get back to his best. So yeah, a long road ahead for James Maddison, but I'd really encourage you to go and check it out, that video, if you haven't seen already. Just lastly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about one more thing about Semenyo. I actually, he's one of those players who does have a private coach that he uses, particularly in the off season, but to sort of top up certain individual skills outside of playing for Bournemouth. And I've interviewed his coach. He's a guy called Sol Isaacson Hurst, who is also the private coach of Noni Madueke, who used to work as a youth coach at Tottenham, so you may recognise his name. But he often does stuff with Semenyo on the side, really, which is a pretty modern thing in top level football, where players often get extra advice and extra training from private coaches to really hone their craft. So I guess the fact that he has one underlines his professionalism. And by all accounts, from knowing people down at Bournemouth and having spoken to Alex Scott in particular, he is just a really good bloke who is much loved by his teammates. So yeah, if Spurs could somehow manage to prize him from Bournemouth, which they would be loath to let him go, but with the release clause and the fact that Bournemouth generally do sell their best players, as proven by obviously Solanke, but Huijsen, Kerkez, all those other names in the recent past, it does feel a doable one. It definitely does. I just wanted to lastly finish on Jed Spence. So I cover England as well as Tottenham, albeit I'm not out in Latvia, but I was at Wembley for the Wales game, which was Spence's full debut for England, his second cap. And I thought he coped really, really well at left back. It's interesting as in he's natural right back, but I do often think his skill set suits left back better. I don't think he's the best crosser of the ball, which means when he plays right back, he is being compared to Pedro Porro when he plays for Spurs at right back, and Pedro Porro is one of the best crossers around, so it's always going to be difficult. But I don't think that's his biggest strength. I think he's much better at cutbacks, which when you're playing on the left side is probably more what he's likely to do, and he's good at that. He's obviously got his pace in behind from an attacking point of view. More than anything, he's a brilliant one-on-one defender. And in fact, from that Maddison video, one of the nice little bits in it was him saying how Maddison telling Spence or revealing how he'd text Spence ahead of the PSG Super Cup game, how he wanted to go and show that he's the best one-on-one defender in the world, and he felt like he did that against PSG. And I think he's done that a lot at times. I know he's had a bit of fun with it on his Instagram, most recently with his teammate Brennan Johnson, but he did shut Johnson down in that England-Wales game. England blew Wales away, to be honest. But it's an interesting one for Spence. I still think the odds are kind of stacked against him to make that World Cup squad next summer, purely from the numbers. But an opportunity has kind of come about because of injuries. So I think if Tino Livramento, between now and the end of the season, once he comes back from his injury, which apparently isn't quite as bad as first feared, he's got that left back spot not sewn up, but I very much expect him to be in the squad as long as he can prove his fitness. And he obviously has the benefit of being able to play both sides. Spence has that too, and actually in that Wales game, towards the second half, he moved to the right back. So that is in his favour. But I would have thought Livramento would be the number one pick for that. And then, do you really want to take no natural left-footers at left back? Because that cost England in the Euros, I would say, when we had Trippier at left back. We didn't have a natural left back, even though they went obviously all the way to the final. So I think it'd be more likely that Tuchel would take a natural left footer as at least a backup left back. And between Miles Lewis-Skelly, who he likes a lot, Luke Shaw he still likes, so don't discount him. Lewis Hall at Newcastle, but he can't stay fit at the moment. Lewis Hall, and Nico O'Reilly, who got called up in the last earlier last week as a bit of a shock inclusion for Reece James. They're all kind of vying with him. They're all natural left footers. The only thing you would say is O'Reilly's very young, inexperienced. He's playing regularly for City. Lewis Skelly can't really get a game for Arsenal at the moment, so if that continues, that could be an issue. Lewis Hall, I mentioned his fitness issues, so there's that. And Livramento is obviously out injured for a long time, and Luke Shaw, has had relentless injury problems throughout his career. So even when he's fit, it often doesn't feel like it's going to be long until he is injured and again. So there is an opportunity there, and it seems with Tuchel he really appreciates the players he can rely on. And if you've got the shirt and you're in these camps, the last two camps apparently being some of the best in recent memory. Harry Kane has said that. Then that really does bode well for Jed Spence. But it seems like a long way to go. He needs to. I wouldn't be sort of booking. I wouldn't be booking his spot on the plane yet. But let's see. It's just worth remembering how far Jed has come. To be fair, what an amazing turnaround for a player who was signed from Middlesbrough, branded a club signing by Conte. Took 2.5 years to get his debut for Spurs. Had a number of loans, a couple that were underwhelming, and then the one to Genoa, which sounded like it went better, but they had a chance to buy him from 8.5 million. They didn't do it. I think that was more due to their financial problems. It looks like an absolute snip at this point when he's probably worth, 40, 50 million now. Winning over Postecoglou last season, becoming the ray of light during that gloomy winter, and now in the England team, not just the England squad, the England team. Fair play to Jed Spence. He's doing brilliantly. Let's see if he can maintain it and get a place on that plane. Cheers, guys. Let me know your thoughts on Antoine Semenyo and Jed Spence as well. Cheers, guys.